Welcome back to Relax Radio, Relaks. And yeah, this is Tuesday with me, Nick, keeping you company all the way until 6. That's right, only here on Real Talk. And this is Relax Radio. And if you want to be a part of the show, all you got to do is simple. Hit me up on those numbers, 07852 473 473. That's right. Those are the magical numbers. You can always feel free to call me up and let me know what you have, if you guys have any thoughts or opinions on any particular thing, well, hit me up and let me know. And also, don't forget to check us out on our social media pages. That's right. We're pretty big on Instagram. And don't forget to check us out on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, and follow. Make sure you guys do that. And also, don't forget, you can download the app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store to carry us all day, every day. And yeah, we're talking about all things that is happening right now in the UK. What with the whole China situation, what they're talking about in the G7 summit. And, there's other things as well with the trade deals that is going on between the UK and Australia. And there's also been a sharp increase in trade across the Irish border. And this was back in April. So yeah, with that regard, you're going to be talking about all these things, and like I said, there has been issues, there has been a concern with regards to this particular topic, and that is the increase in trading in the Irish border. And in case you guys are wondering, there has been rising tensions with the UK and the EU with this regards. They're talking about all these things, and there was a lot of issues, and it did somewhat overshadow this particular topic in the G7 summit. So instead of climate change and other related things, they were talking about this mostly. And there were issues with regards to the French president, giving off some offhanded comments with this regards. And, it kind of fired up the UK ministers with that. So this is just, some of the things. There is a up and down road with this regards. There's been back and forth with this current issue at matter. So looking at this, there has been a sharp increase in trade across Northern Ireland, for more than doubled year on year, from 137 million euros to 296 million euros. So these figures essentially are likely to be affected by a general reduced level of trade in April 2020 due to the pandemic. So this was basically due to the pandemic that was going on. However, for the whole of the month, for the whole of January to April, the period of the Northern Ireland exports to Ireland were up by 60% more than 1 billion euros. So that's like 850 million pounds. So that's right, those are the numbers. And, looking at all these figures, and with that regards, there has been a lot of these discussions and up to date. And they're talking about all these things, going on right now. Well, the figures from Ireland's Central Statistics Office, or the CSO, also showed the value of Irish exports to Northern Ireland increasing. So in January to April, they were up by 40% to 977 million euros. That is 841 million pounds. That's right. So since the NI protocol began operating in January, it has become more difficult for businesses in either part of Ireland to import goods from Great Britain. So right now Ireland is facing the brunt of it all, and they're facing issues with this regards, where they are having a difficulty. They're having a tough time importing products into their country. So with that, like I said, Ireland has remained in the EU single market for goods, which means that products arriving from Great Britain are subject to new checks and controls. So there's going to be a tightening of the controls because of that matter, and because of that, it is going to complicate things between the UK and the EU because of the complications with the whole Brexit situation. And in addition to all of that, this is just icing on the cake. And right now, goods arriving from Britain into the Republic of Ireland face similar processes as well. However, goods trade across the Irish border remains as it was before Brexit, with no new checks and controls. So that may have prompted some businesses to source more products on the island of Ireland rather than from Great Britain. So the CSO figures also show that trade between Great Britain and the Republic of Ireland has reduced since the start of the year. So with that regards, like I said, there has been a lot of this discussion, a lot of these talks as well. They've been, getting on together with these questions. There have been a lot of rising tensions between these two unions, these two groups. Essentially, the EU and the UK have been they've been trying to settle it off, but then there's a lot of passive aggressiveness in that regards. So the CSO figures also show that there has been a reduce between the Great Britain and the Republic of Ireland. There has been a reduce of trade. So the total value of the Great Britain exports, which is right now, we're to Ireland, we're down by 2 billion euros. That is 1.7 billion pounds, or that is 39% to 3.3 billion euros, or 2.8 billion pounds year on year in the January to April period. So between that period from January to April, which is 4 months, there has been a down by 39%. So by the contrast, the Irish exports, though, to Great Britain were up almost 88% year on year to 3.4 billion pounds. That may reflect the fact that the UK had still not imposed full import controls on EU goods. So officials' figures show trade between Northern Ireland and the Great Britain are only published on an annual basis. So it may be 2022 before there is solid data on how Brexit and the Irish sea border has had impact on those relationships. So, all right, like I said, these are matters that are going on, and this is also being discussed. There has been issues with this regards. There has been concerns with other countries as well. How the UK and the US also got itself involved in this particular matter, and they were trying to talk this out. And they're saying, okay, listen, we have to stand by Northern Ireland because UK will have to honor the Good Friday Protocol. And if that means they are going to be against the country, well, they're going to be. If the US, they say they'll have to stand against the UK. I mean, it's not specifically said, but that was what was implied rather in these these meetings and these comments. So with that regards, though, like I said, the UK will have to solve its issue with regards to the Northern Ireland issue. And looking at things on the other side of the world, you're looking at India. India's vaccine drive right now. There's stories from the best to the worst of the districts. There has been a lot of this, and right now there has been a lot of the country in India, rather, there have been a lot of these cases, the COVID-19, the variant, the Delta variant that is so widely known right now in the UK is originally was first discovered and identified in India. So vaccination against the COVID was always going to be a massive challenge for India, a country of at least 1.4 billion people. So that is, with that regards, India, the vaccine drive stories, these are just crazy of how the situation is going. So the program had a smooth enough start. India began giving jabs on the 16th of January, first to frontline workers and those above the age of 60. But by May, when the drive was thrown out open to everyone above the age of 18, the country was severely low on stocks because not enough people have been getting the vaccines because they were overpopulated. That is, rather, the amount of stocks that they brought into the country was not enough to keep up with the population, is rather what I'd like to say. And looking at this, even the demand surged in the wake of a devastating second wave. There has been a crazy second wave, and because of that, the demands have even soared even higher. So the supply shortage, however, has not been the only challenge so far in India. Well, India's efforts to vaccinate its people has had varying success across regions because of other issues, from planning to infrastructure to misinformation. So it's not just, the amount of stocks that they were having wasn't enough, but rather it was also had to do with a lot of the other things as well, including planning this whole thing and the infrastructure and a lot of misinformation as well. So analysts show that 729 districts for which data was available shows wide disparities in per capita vaccination rates. So some districts have been given jabs to half their population. So some of the districts actually give half of their population already has received their jabs, while others have vaccinated as little as 3%. So there is actually some places that have not received proper vaccination with that regards. So right now, some urban and sparsely populated districts have fared better than other large or rural ones. So with that regards, looking at all these things, it's mostly when you come to that regards, the most place that has gotten the vaccines. Well, looking at their charts by this, and looking at the charts, it shows that mostly the northern part of India has received a lot of their vaccines. So it just shows, where a lot of these things went wrong. So to the Mahe and South Delhi, near the top of the, this place, the map, well, the other two are a lot of these places, that have been going on with these vaccines. And with that regards, like I said, the people did not expect the way it was going to happen. Like looking at all these things, a lot of there was a lack of focus on the coronavirus and vaccine. And this was mostly, got to do with elections and all of that. In India, they had to they had a lot of things, they had to maneuver through. And with that regards, like I said, maneuvering through most of these things was a challenge for the people in the country and for the government as well. So right now they have been going through a lot of these things as well. There was a lot of issues, and hospitals were struggling to keep up with the amount of people coming in, the daily admissions. There was at a point also where the country was faced with such a problem where there was not enough oxygen for them. There was not enough oxygen. Oxygen had to be imported from other countries. That was the unfortunate fate of India. So like I said, most of this, the people in these parts of India were struggling, and they were to a point where they had issues with planning, and they said planning was there was a lot of problems with that regard. They couldn't plan the amount of vaccine, how to deploy the vaccines with that regards, the infrastructures, and people were scared as well. Looking at all these figures, people were afraid of taking the vaccine because of misinformation. I mean, looking at social media, there's a lot of these quotes on social media talking about how people were afraid of taking vaccines because they heard that people died after getting vaccinated. So these are just some of the things, some of the comments that people were talking about. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of people didn't step forward also to take the vaccine. So that's also, attributed to the rise in the number of cases in the country. So with that regards, like I said, there is a lot of these problems. There have been a lot of these issues. So it's just baffling to see, how for them it was a difficult thing to handle and to maneuver across. So with that regards, there has been, they have been doing their best so far, and they are trying to get vaccinated as much as possible. And, this just goes and, this gives joint hand in hand with the promise that the G7 has made. So right now, the G7 is saying that they will donate at least by the end of the year 1 billion vaccines across the world. And when the countries like India are faced with this situation, 1 billion vaccines is still not enough for their whole population when you come to that regard. So what about these countries that have it difficult the most? How are they supposed to cope with this? There could be other ways to cope with this, but my regard is, from my point of view, what I'm seeing is they are having a struggle. And because of that, deployment of the vaccine has been quite a struggle over there. So yeah, you guys can let me know what your thoughts are on that. You can always hit me up and let me know. 07852 473 473. That's right. Those are the magical numbers. Feel free to hit me up anytime and, ask me any questions. If you guys have anything that is on your mind, it's plaguing your mind, well, hit me up, let me know, call me up right now. And also don't forget, you can download the app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. Carry us all day, every day. And with that being said, though, we are going to be taking a real quick break, and we will be right back after this.
Again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, you've had one to forget, God, there'd be an inquest. Me, why did you reject my son? Well, I haven't rejected your son.
I want to talk about, how the generation gap, how much it's changed, especially when you check the youth nowadays in comparison, to people back in the day.
I'd say when I was younger, it was more disciplined. Not now.
In comparison to now.
Not at all. Not now. The way things are nowadays, the younger generation, you seem that they can't accept the word no. If that makes sense.
They can't accept rejection, essentially, is all you're trying to say.
Yeah, they can't accept the word no. So if you how did I do? Well, you didn't do very well. And they get upset. And when I was a youngster, my father used to say to me, because I used to be sport mad when I was very young, well, I still am sport mad, but like participating in different sports. And if I had a bad game, for example, I'd say to me, you had one to forget. That's it.
Yeah, that sounds like a smart guy. That's the real fact of the matter, yeah.
He'd say to me, you had one to forget. Get over it. And that was it. So I'd put myself down and do it again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, you've had one to forget, God, there'd be an inquest. why did you reject my son? Oh, I haven't rejected your son. Or daughter. I've just told them that they need to buck their ideas up.
That's the truth right there. I mean, if you think about it, if you check the generations, like right now in the US as well, I've seen a lot of these things as well in the UK. You know, you get medals for participation. But what's the point? What are you trying to? Yeah, what's the point? Either you win or you lose. People are so afraid to put that whole notion of lose. You know, when it comes to right now, the generation gap is just crazy. You know how much. A lot has changed. Social media has taken control of our lives, and we don't even realize it anymore. We're crippled because of it.
That's absolutely right, Nick. Because, as you said, you know, nowadays it seems that you get rewarded for failure. You know, for the life of me, Nick, I can't get my head around that. Perhaps I'm just getting old and morbid. I don't know. I just can't get my head around how you could be rewarded for failure.
Welcome back to Relaks Radio, RELAKS. That's right. You know, this is where we try to keep it positive and try to kick out the negative because, you know, we believe in positivity and all of that. So make sure, you know, you guys are tuning in to Real Talk with me, Nick, keeping you up to date with all the current affairs that is going on right now and is going on in the country. And yeah, you know, we were talking about, like I said, related things, all the things that is going on with the vaccines and all of those issues. And yeah, with that regards, though, right now, looking at all these things, there has been a rise, rather, of Europe tools against US and Asia as their battery cars are, you know, they're forced against a battery situation. Right now, there is a lot of these factories in the UK and the EU, you know, talking about all that. And they're trying to get green, but then there is the situation of getting into the whole market and to the whole industry and making sure people get into it. But then there, like I said, have been controversies with this regard. And yeah, not a lot of people have been willing to transition to this. And yeah, it has been causing a rise of concern with that regards. And people, like I said, the government's plan is to make sure the country the world rather, by 2050, we cut out on all the carbon emission. So yeah, the world is planning to get into this into action. They're planning to make sure that this goes according to plan, and they're trying to get a lot of these big companies as well. These big exotic car companies are also planning to make the transition across to make sure that they are also to make sure that their vehicles also transition. So they're saying, okay, it's going to take a little bit of delay, but we will make sure that we transition across to going green, because that is the whole plan right now. The plan is to make sure, the whole country goes green. So yeah, with that regard, let's see how it goes. Hopefully this is something that they can move forward with across. And yeah, like I said, the government is making sure, that they do a lot of these things, what with the issue rising right now in the country of the restrictions, how it's getting delayed, how the lifting of the restrictions has gotten delayed. And yeah, the Prime Minister insists that July unlocking will go ahead in England. I mean, these are the things that people have heard already, so I'm not quite sure if they buy it, but the Prime Minister is determined that the remaining coronavirus restrictions in England will be lifted on the 19th of July. This is what the number 10 says, despite concern that a rise in deaths could force a change of the plans. So Boris Johnson said the measures must remain in place until then because of the rapid spread of the Delta variant. So all adults will be able to book a jab by the end of the next week. This is what the NHS chiefs have been saying. So by the end of next week, hopefully all the adults in the country in the UK will be able to get their vaccines and their jabs. So let's see. Hopefully this is something that they are planning to do. But some Tory MPs fear a further delay to lockdown easing and warnings of all of this. They're saying there is going to be more issues, a delay to the lockdown easing. There's been warnings of return to hundreds of deaths a day. So there has been fear that because of this, this is because of that. They're having these fears. A lot of these Tory MPs are afraid that we will, there's been warnings of returns to hundreds of deaths a day, and we want to avoid that as much as possible. We want to prevent the increase in mortality rate. So Sir Simon Stevens, the chief executive of NHS England, said that the health service would finish the job of the vaccination program to the greatest extent possible over the next 4 weeks. So they're saying, okay, within this 4-week time period, this grace period that we've been given, well, we are going to make sure that we get every single individual vaccinated. So what they're going to do is, as much as possible, get a lot of people on board the vaccine program and get them at least the second dose and the first dose as well. So he said, expected that all those over the age of 18 would be able to book by the end of this week, and that the NHS aimed to offer second doses to 2/3 of adults by the 19th of July. So by the 19th of July, that's what they're expecting. They're saying, okay, we are expected to get the whole country on board with this and make sure, by the 19th of July, when it comes, we can make all of the adults in the country have, at least 2/3 of the adults in the country have their second dose. So right now, on Monday, Mr. Johnson did announce a 4-week delay to the planned easing of lockdown restrictions in England on the 21st of June. So not a lot of people were happy about it. Businesses were complaining, and they were saying, okay, this is an issue, and they were criticizing the government's decisions, and they're saying all sorts of things. I mean, like I said, businesses will think about how their income is coming, and that's I mean, in their point of view, it might be fair, but at the same time, we have to understand that the whole country will be at risk for something like this, and we have to consider those facts as well. I mean, we can't just offhandedly just decide, okay, the country is supposed to go so and so this is how we're going to do it. I mean, we can't really run the country like that. So, in my opinion, like I still till today, I can even say that for the fact that I can say that the decision of the government right now is a smart decision to make sure that they keep it locked and at least get more individuals as much as possible vaccinated before we come to that inevitable lifting of the lockdown. So yeah, all these restrictions in England, they have delayed it on, which is originally supposed to be on the 21st of June. They delayed it for another 4 weeks, that is a month, after scientific advices warned of a significant resurgence in people needing hospital treatment if it went ahead. So they said, okay, like I said, a lot of these scientists were warning the government and saying the NHS will come to that point where they will require more and more, there will be more and more hospitalizations, and we want to avoid that. We want to prevent any sort of that situation where our health forces will be overburdened, and this is something that we want to avoid and prevent at all times. So to do that, this is just some of the things that the government has to make sure that we delay this easing of lockdown as much as possible. And he went on to say, Boris Johnson went on to say that 19th of July would be the terminus date for the remaining restrictions on social contact, and the delay would allow more people to get vaccinated. So a few restrictions are being lifted on the 21st of June, including the limit on wedding guests numbers. So they're saying, okay, this is the scenario. What we're going to do is we're going to allow more people to celebrate their weddings, and there's going to be they're including the limit of these guest numbers. They're lifting all of those restrictions for that. So right now 15 coronavirus pilots events will continue as planned, including some upcoming Euro 2020 games. So Wimbledon and arts and music performances, attendees will have to show proof of vaccination or a negative result test. So that should be a recent one as well. You can't just make sure that you're X and Y and Z. You've gotten the test before. No, it has to be a recent test. So it is to ensure that that you are not. How do you say this? In other words, you don't have and you're not a carrier of the virus, possible carrier of the virus. So the announcement that the vaccine rollout would be accelerated came as Professor Graham Medley, a member of the Scientific Advisory Group for Emergencies, or the SAGE, said the numbers of people dying from coronavirus would rise. And this caused a lot of fear, especially rising fear with government officials, and this is something that they want to avoid. And he went on to say, citing that the question is as to what level they will rise. It is possible we could end up in a situation whereby the number of people going to hospital really mean that the government have to take some kind of action that they don't want to. But he added, the government has had to do this throughout the pandemic. So Professor Adam Finn, a member of the Joint Committee on Vaccinations and Immunization, or the JCVI, said the delay was extremely welcome and he hoped it would be enough. And they're saying about all this, with that regards, they are talking about how they wanted to prevent this as much as possible. And if there was a delay, they're saying they are glad. It's, for example, Professor Adam, who is a member of the JCVI, said that he is glad that this is something that happened, and he hopes that this time frame would be enough to get a lot of the people vaccinated as much as possible. And he also went on to say that there was very promising evidence that the vaccination rollout meant there were fewer serious cases of coronavirus, and that getting more people vaccinated would allow England to get ahead of this current wave. So Cabinet Office Minister Michael Gove said he shared the Prime Minister's confidence about the 19th of July end date. And they say, okay, we are confident that this terminus date would be something that we need. This is something that we are positive that this is going to be effective. This delay is going to be effective. So right now, though, he did say that one can never predict the future with pure confidence. And he went on, he added that but insofar as we can be confident about anything in this complex world, we can be confident that the increased level of vaccinations that we will have by the 19th of July would allow us to further relax the restrictions. And they say, okay, we're glad that this is happening, and then hopefully by the 19th of July, we can get more and more people vaccinated, and that can prevent us, prevent the virus from spreading even more, from transmitting even more, and we can hold back on that. So, however, Mark Harper, the chairman of the COVID recovery group of Tory MP, said we could have moved ahead perfectly safely without the delay. And he said that the Prime Minister's comments about 19th of July were exactly the same words as he was using about the 21st of June. And some of us, I'm afraid, are a bit worried that we're not actually going to move forward on the 19th of July. And Labour, meanwhile, has accused the government of incompetence over its handling of the corona variant, saying lax border policies led to the Delta variant entering the country. So, there has been comments and, there has been criticism with this regard. Make sure you guys keep it locked right here. We're going to be talking about this as we go along, as we go ahead in the show. And we're going to be taking a real quick break and taking a look at your time right now. It is 3:48. Good evening.
Climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
You're talking about mental health. Well, if you went out and got some exercise in the fresh air, that would improve your mental health. It will make you feel better.
That's true. That is true. I wholeheartedly agree. But then for some people, it's how do you find the motivation to, especially when it comes to riding a bicycle, to do it again and again and again and again? It's a cycle that you have to be used to. How do you do it? What makes you wake up in the morning and decide, hey, I'm going to pick my bike up today. I'm going to cycle. What makes you want to do that?
What makes me want to do that?
Yeah. What do you like? What could you give listeners, like people listening in right now? What kind of tip could you give them?
Well, the first tip I would give them, if you haven't tried it before, try it. It can open up new horizons. It'll make you fitter. It will definitely make you fitter. Cycling is one of the best forms of aerobic exercise you can do.
It sounds like, I mean, if you think about it, yeah, it sounds like great fun. Because what essentially you're trying to say is also at the same time, when you, if you look at it from this perspective, with regards to mental health, especially when you look at it with mental health, this is another way to fight it. I feel like you go outside, you meet more people, you interact with, socially, you will interact with more people, and you're keeping fit, you're making connections, you're breathing in the good and exhaling the bad. I feel like that's a great thing right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got a better way with words than I have, I'll tell you. But you're quite right. What you say there. You're quite right.
I mean, I've been doing this for quite some time. I mean, hey, you'll get the hang of it.
I've been doing it for about 10 minutes now, so yeah.
That I can never really understand people staying in one room the whole day when you can have the world to see. I am a traveler. I travel. I love traveling. Traveling is just one of the things I do. And yeah, on top of my bucket list was, to one time, hopefully when I get there, go to Nepal and climb Mount Everest. That is that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
Base camp, yeah.
At least.
Would you be able to cycle there?
Oh.
Welcome back to the show. This is Relaks Radio. We're talking about all the things that is going on right now in the UK and the decision of the country, for the delay. And, how the Prime Minister is saying that, they are going to lift the restrictions. They're going to make sure that they lift the restrictions by the time July comes. But a lot of people have been questioning about that. And a lot of them have not been 100%, happy about this. And, like I said, looking at all these things, Mark Harper, the chairman of the COVID recovery group of Tory MP, said we could have moved forward ahead perfectly safely without the delay. So he went on to say that the Prime Minister's comments about the 19th of July were exactly the same words he was using for the 21st of June. And that is, he said all these things, he made all these promises, and he said, okay, we're going to make sure that we release the lockdown situation. But, some of us, I'm afraid, are a bit worried that we're not actually going to move forward on the 19th of July. This is what he's saying. He directly quoted this, and he did say this. And Labour, meanwhile, has accused the government of incompetence over handling all of these COVID variants, and they blame it mostly on how lax policies in the country allowed the Delta variant to enter the country. And like I said, they are talking about within this regards, and there's been a lot of people against this, and they have been criticizing the government and how they handled the situation. Well, looking at all this, they went on to say Jonathan Ashworth, who is the Shadow Health Secretary, said that rather than red listing this variant, we essentially gave it the red carpet treatment, as 20,000 people were allowed to arrive from India over a number of weeks in April, even though the warning signs were there, and that essentially seeded this Delta variant across the country. So they're saying, okay, if the government took in more consideration, made in more tighter rules, especially when it comes to traveling and all of that, we wouldn't have gotten it. Right now, what could have happened is we could have opened up the country by the time the 21st of June hit. We couldn't have, we didn't have to push the dates and delay it even further, is what a lot of them are insinuating. But the confidence amongst ministers that all remaining restrictions will lift on the 19th of July is understandable, given the extent of the vaccine rollout. They say, okay, by that point, hopefully, the whole country, at least 2/3 of the country, can get vaccinated by the time 19th of July is coming, so a lot of this, though, behind the scenes, the one fear is that what to do if all cases are still rising at that point. So that is the one thing that they want to not consider. That is the worst case scenario. And they say, okay, the worst case scenario, what if the numbers are actually not reducing and it's not dwindling down, but rather it's rising and it is seeing a sharp rise? What are we going to do then is the fear. So infections are climbing right now and it's very sharp. And modelers, a lot of these statisticians rather, believe that this could lead to more than 1,000 hospital admissions a day later in the summer. And that is something they are considering right now. They're wondering, okay, how are we going to handle this? And they are, they've projected a lot of these models and a lot of these charts and graphs and says, it shows, okay, if we are continuing to go the way we are right now and we don't do anything at all, well, we can see a rise in admissions that could match the January cases. The number of admissions in January was more than 15,000 a day. So that was just a whole lot of people, in a hospital, and that inadvertently caused the burden and overstressed the NHS and strained them as thin as possible. So this is something that they are projecting, and they're saying, okay, the government right now, what they're doing is wise. They're making sure that they increase the number of making sure that they delay the lifting of restrictions and to get more and more people vaccinated, at least with the second dose as well. So the number of cases and the link between the virus and the vaccines will increase. So then there will be a weakening of the link, at least hopefully complete shattering of the link is what they are looking forward to. So like I said, 1,000 admissions a day is what they are believing, and they're saying it the way it's rising right now. They believe that at least more than 1,000 hospital admissions a day will happen later in the summer. But that, in case you guys are wondering, that is equivalent to what the NHS would face for all types, that is all types of respiratory illnesses in the middle of a bad winter. So in a bad winter, well, this is something we could expect. And, we can expect that something like this could happen. But the hope is that in a couple of weeks, infection levels will have started to flatten down. So right now we are hoping that in a couple of weeks, well, the numbers and the number of cases, rather, the number of admissions in the hospitals will come to a plateau and then eventually just flatten down and then go down. This is what they are hoping for. The government is hoping for this, and they want this to happen as much as possible. And they're saying if it falls, well, the virus hits the number of immunity built up by the vaccination program. So they say if the numbers do fall, well, it's because, we got enough and more people vaccinated in the country. So this is why the link between the virus and the number of cases rising has decreased. So they hope that, like I said, there is no guarantee for all of this, though. There is not 100% guarantee that this is going to happen. But knowing that the peak of this wave is still to come will make the final decision harder if hospitalization climbs as expected. So if the hospitalization is increasing, well, this is going to be a problem, and this is going to be a very big concern. And the fact remains, though, that COVID is going to present a risk. Exactly how much, though, is hard to quantify at this stage. So at this stage, we are not quite sure how much of a risk this Delta variant is going to be, though it will be, of course, much lower than it was before in comparison, because before we didn't have enough of people, we didn't have the information that we had right now. And with that regards, though, like I said, there is a lot of these things that is going on, and we've not, like I said, considering all these things, looking at the figures and the data and the information that we have now, which we didn't have earlier when the pandemic first hit us, well, at least we're better informed. We have vaccines now. We have some way to combat the spread of the virus. So they say, okay, the risks is going to be there, but we are better prepared for when it gets even worse. So we are trying to reduce the amount of spread in the viruses. So the extension of these restrictions will be put to a Commons vote. So there will be a vote on this, which could trigger a sizable conservative backbench rebellion, with a debate expected on the coming Wednesday. So the new analysis by the Public Health of England showed 2 doses of either the Pfizer vaccine or the AstraZeneca vaccine were highly effective at preventing hospital admissions from the Delta variant. So they say, okay, you need and you are required to have at least 2 doses. That's right, not 1, but rather 2. So if you have 2 doses, well, you are better equipped to fight this virus. And looking at that, they said you can either have the Pfizer vaccine or the AstraZeneca. It doesn't matter as long as you have 2 doses, because the people who are more susceptible to the disease and who are more prone to the disease, well, it's because they had only one dose of the vaccine or they had none at all. So that is, another reason why they are encouraging people to come forward, step forward, and make sure you start booking and making your appointments to get your second dose of the vaccine. So the PHE said the effectiveness was comparable to against the Alpha variant, which was previously dominant in the UK. So they said previously about this variant, this particular variant, the Alpha variant, also known as the Kent variant. So this particular variant, which was first discovered in Kent, they said, okay, these doses of the vaccines that we're taking is effective for this particular strain, but it's also effective for the Delta variant. So Mr. Johnson said the gap between the doses for over 40s in England would be reduced from 12 to 8 weeks. And the target to offer all adults a first dose will be brought forward to the 19th of July. So there has been, a lot of this. Like I said, they are saying that this is unfortunate that we had to push back the dates. We had to do all of this, X, Y, and Z. People are not happy about it. But then, this is the inevitable. So this is how it's going to happen. When we can't really predict these situations, the outcome of all of the situation. And the government had to do what it had to do. And a lot of these factors and these sectors as well, these companies and these businesses are struggling and are suffering from the delay. And they say hospitality, wedding, and nighttime entertainment businesses are amongst those who have criticized this delay. They say, okay, we are not quite happy with how this is turning out. And the government has said it will not extend the furlough scheme or other financial support any further. So despite the delay to unlocking the roadmap, so they say, okay, these furlough schemes and all of these financial support that we've been giving so far, we're not going to be extending them because, hey, listen, this is how it is. Although it is the government's duty, because at the end of the day, it was the government who decided to delay the lifting of the restrictions. So Downing Street said local authorities payments. So under the furlough scheme, the government covers up to 80% of an employee's salary for the hours they cannot work because of the pandemic. So they say at least 80% of a person's wage is dependent on this furlough scheme at the moment currently. So the scheme is due to run out until the end of September, but employers will have to help cover the cost from July. So the plans for easing of these coronavirus restrictions may differ between the four UK nations. As of yet, with that regards, Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon is due to announce later whether all areas will move to level 0 COVID restrictions on the 28th of June. So that would mean bigger groups could gather in cafes, in pubs, and in restaurants, although they would still have to observe social distancing. So limits on indoor gatherings in Northern Ireland are also scheduled to be relaxed on the 21st of June. And the rules in Wales will still be reviewed on the 25th of June. So they haven't really, in Wales right now, the smartest. I know Wales is taking it the slowest with regards in comparison to all the four UK nations. So Wales right now is saying they are going to be reviewing what they are going to be relaxing and how they're going to relax their restrictions. More on that and a whole lot more. Make sure you guys keep it locked right here on Relaks Radio. Taking away your time, it is a 4:02. Good evening.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh. So that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, got me thinking. You want to stand out. Why do you want to stand out though so much, especially with these kind of shirts when you're riding? There must be a purpose behind it, right?
Well, when you say a purpose, Nick, what I do, I wear the shirts mainly because they're nice and bright. So they make me visible, especially if I'm riding on the road.
Okay. Yeah, that's very important, right? Because you want cars, yeah.
Very important. And also, like, people see me in, like, calves, and perhaps I shouldn't be saying this on air, I suppose, but in the bar afterwards.
All right.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh, so that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, you look like a guy who would do.
You know me too well. You know me too well, Nick.
welcome back to the show. This is Relax Radio with me, Nick, keeping you company on Real Talk all the way until 6 p.m. That's right. We're talking about all the things that is going on right now in the UK. And there's a lot of this discussions, rather, of how the situation is brimming and how the whole situation between the UK and the EU is rising. There's a lot of tension, with that regards, especially when it comes to importing and exporting products from the UK to Northern Ireland. And with that, there has been a blooming case of rather a budding case, I'd like to say, between the UK and Australia. So Australia and the UK have been in talks with trade deals. So this is all after the first post-Brexit trade deal. This is what is going on right now between these two countries. And there's been a lot of discussion and a lot of talks, and a lot of farmers also were not quite 100% sure with this. So a trade deal between the UK and Australia has been agreed between Prime Minister Boris Johnson and his counterpart Scott Morrison. So Downing Street said the new pact meant British products such as cars, Scotch whiskey, biscuits, and ceramics would be cheaper to sell to Australia. And however, though, there was concern from UK farmers about how they were worried and they were, concerned that they may be undercut on price and standards. So they're because of this, the deal is first to be built from scratch since the UK left the EU. So this is the first substantial, bonding that rather substantial link that the UK has made post-Brexit. So this is the first country that the UK has made ties with after the whole Brexit situation. And with that regards, though, it's an important step for the UK right now. It is an important step towards joining a wider Asia-Pacific free trade agreement. Boris Johnson said in his statements, though, that our new free trade agreement opens up fantastic opportunities for British businesses and consumers, as well as young people wanting the chance to work and live on the other side of the world. However, Dominic Godi, the head of international trade at the Food and Drink Federation, expressed concern about the lack of detail. And it is now vital that we know the detail of what has been agreed to help these businesses understand and to begin prepare for new terms of trade. This is what they have been discussing and they've been saying on. And the terms must also ensure that consumers have continued confidence that any agreement maintains the highest food and animal welfare standards. So National Farmers Union's President Minette Baylors said, while the government has previously been keen to highlight how our free trade agreements will uphold our higher standards of food production, there has always been a question mark over how this can be achieved while opening up our markets to food produced to different standards. So there is, a talk with a lot of this, and there's been talks with this regards, and there has been issues, and farmers, like I said, in the UK are not quite agreeable with this whole trade deal. So under the deal with Australia, the government says farmers will be protected by a cap on tariff-free imports for 15 years. So using these tariff rate quotas and other safeguards. But some UK farmers went on to say, having concerns that there was no meaningful safeguards in place to stop them being undercut by cheap imports. So farmers in Australia are allowed to use hormone growth promoters, pesticides, and feed additives that are banned in the UK. So some of these things, how these farmers, they feed and what they put into the food of these animals, some of these are actually banned in the UK on how they raise their animal husbandry. In comparison to the UK, Australia has more free reign. They are allowed to use a lot of these growth promoters, these pesticides, and they feed additives to these animals. So the UK is concerned about that with that regards. The UK Trade and Business Commission is worried that Australian farming operates on a scale that UK counterparts cannot compete with, saying Australia contains 8 of the 10 largest farms in the world, including one which is larger than Israel. So according to the UK's National Farmers Union, Australian farmers are able to produce a beef at lower costs of production, and that could actually undercut farmers in the UK. So ministers in Scotland have also raised worries about the farming industry being overwhelmed if the market is flooded with lower standard goods. So Welsh lamb and Australian wine are said to have been on the menu as Boris Johnson and Scott Morrison settled down the deal over dinner. But ultimately, this deal is more significant and symbolic than in economic terms. So right now, although it might look like loss for the UK, well, this isn't exactly a loss, because what is actually going on is the UK is building relations with this country. So that is going to open up new doors and avenues for the UK, with an Indo-Pacific trading free agreement. So this is a trade free agreement. This is something that we want. We want to build this, and even though it comes at a cost of our own, even though the government can say, a lot of these fancy words, we all know that what is going to happen is this situation is just a loss. It's not really, they're not giving exact assurance to our farmers. So our farmers have a right to be concerned, and they are worried, and they are saying, okay, listen, we are worried, we are concerned. There is no proper safeguard in place, and there is no safeguard measures in place. So we are worried they have the right to be worried. I mean, you are worried because this is, at the end of the day, your livelihood. And then there is issues, where these companies and these competitors come in and they can't compete. And the reason they can sell even more is because their meat might be even more of their standards are, in comparison, lower to the UK's. So they're allowed to use a lot of these, these pesticides, and then these growth promoters. And while the UK do not have any of those facilities, because these are banned in our country. So, with that regards, these are standards that we have to be keeping a very close watch on. And the government needs to take a watch on this, and farmers are urging the government to do that. And right now, for the government's own estimates, the new arrangements may add just 0.02% to our current GDP. And the impact on prices is negligible at most. So the first bespoke deal of the post-Brexit era signifies global Britain's ambition. So, like I said, this is opening up avenues that we have not expected and we didn't think we'd come into. So even though it is not coming up as a big benefit for us, opening up avenues with Australia is gonna, open up doors for us, and we can trade more, and we have more facilities in the future. So this is just one of the things that we are doing right now, and the hope is that this paves the way for more alliances and beyond the EU, starting with a group of trans-Pacific nations. So that is the CPTPP. Or they only buy 8% of our exports, is what the UK is saying. So we have deals already with the majority of these members, but the ultimate hope is that the key partners, such as the US, might actually also join. So this whole thing, this whole trade thing between the UK and Australia, they say it symbolizes the sacrifices may be needed to get deals. British farmers fear they will face more competition from Australian counterparts on their home soil. So Australian farmers say they won't be flooding the market, and the UK is so far away that even 8% increase in Australian imports, the government predicts equates to at least 0.1% of total UK imports. So it will be a while before the details of this deal can be publicly scrutinized, and they will be doing investigations with this regard. But right now, even by those who've been affected, the concern is that this will set a marker that agriculture may be up for grabs when it comes to compromise in the future and far bigger trade deals. So the UK government has signed a long list of trade deals over the past year, but they have been rollovers of those the UK already had as part of the EU. And the new trade deal could allow the UK to eventually join this wider. Like I said, the goal is right now, it might not look like we are benefiting from this, but we are in the long run. What's happening is UK is building ties with these countries, which will open up doors for us in the future, for future trading. So the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, or the CPTPP, that is right, the government says could provide British farmers with huge opportunities. So right now it might not look like a lot, but then hopefully in the future, this is something that can and will happen. So in 2019 to 2020, the trade in goods and services between Australia and the UK was valued at £20.1 billion. So the government says the deal will boost UK industries that employ 3.5 million people across the globe. And they're saying, okay, this is going to employ a lot of people. We're going to get a lot of job opportunities. People shouldn't be afraid of losing their jobs, because they're not going to be losing the jobs. Rather, they are going to be faced with more job opportunities. So in that regards, there is, issues they are trying to assure the people, but metal, wine, and machines have formed the biggest good exports for Australia to the UK, while Australia's main UK imports are cars, medicines, and alcoholic beverages. So the trade in meat between the two countries is small at present, with 14% of sheep meat imports to the UK coming from Australia and just 0.3% 15% of all Australian beef exports going to the UK. So they're saying, okay, there's not that much of deal. We're not, importing that much of meat from these countries. So we don't really understand. We don't understand the fear. I mean, the fear is there, but you shouldn't have anything to be afraid of, is what the government is trying to tell right now. But the deals mark the end of what essentially has been a 50-year lockout for Australian farmers who have been struggling to navigate Brussels restrictions and tariffs. So right now, all of these quotas and tariffs have been going underway. And the president of the Australian National Farmers Federation said it had been very difficult to break into the UK because it was way too expensive and way too far. So Australian farmers have also been looking to diversify due to the increased tensions between Australia and China. So in the past year, China has imposed tariffs and restrictions on everything from Australian meat and beef and barley and wine to rock lobsters and coal. So Australia is also having their issues, and they have something to gain and something to benefit from all of this as well. So, these are just, some of the things that are marking the change in the decade right now. This whole era is changing the way we are trade dealing, and we're opening up trades with Australia, because initially, like I was saying, Australia had difficulty with importing and exporting to UK because of how expensive it was and the distance as well. So hopefully that will change for the Australian market. Let's see how it goes. And with that, we're going to be taking a real quick break and taking a look at your time right now. It is 4:18. Good evening.
Climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
You're talking about mental health. Well, if you went out and got some exercise in the fresh air, that would improve your mental health. It will make you feel better.
That's true. That is true. I wholeheartedly agree. But then for some people, it's how do you find the motivation? Especially when it comes to riding a bicycle, to do it again and again and again and again. It's a cycle that you have to be used to. How do you do it? What makes you wake up in the morning and decide, hey, I'm going to pick my bike up today. I'm going to cycle. What makes you want to do that?
What makes me want to do that?
Yeah. What do you like? What could you give listeners, like people listening in right now? What kind of tip could you give them?
Well, the first tip I would give them, if you haven't tried it before, try it. It can open up new horizons. It'll make you fitter. It will definitely make you fitter. Cycling is one of the best forms of aerobic exercise you can do.
It sounds like, if you think about it, yeah, it sounds like great fun. Because what essentially you're trying to say is also at the same time, when if you look at it from this perspective, with regards to mental health, especially when you look at it with mental health, this is another way to fight it. I feel like you go outside, you meet more people, you interact with, socially, you will interact with more people, and you're keeping fit, you're making connections, you're breathing in the good and exhaling the bad. I feel like that's a great thing right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got a better way with words than I have, I'll tell you. But you're quite right. What you say there.
I've been doing this for quite some time. Hey, you'll get the hang of it.
I've been doing it for about 10 minutes now, so yeah.
That I can never really understand people staying in one room the whole day when you can have the world to see. I am a traveler. I travel. I love traveling. Traveling is just one of the things I do. And on top of my bucket list was, to one time, hopefully when I get there, go to Nepal and climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. Okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
Base camp, yeah.
At least.
Would you be able to cycle there?
Oh.
Welcome back to the show, and yeah, we're talking about all things related, with the whole COVID situation, the Brexit issues, and the tensions rising between the UK and the EU, and how there's a budding alliance forming up between Australia and the UK. There's a lot of these things going on, and one right now is how Apple and Google are being investigated by UK competition body. So yeah, there is also a discussion with that regards. They're talking about these things, and yeah, with these regards, they're talking about how the whole situation is not looking so good. And with these things, like I said, with that relation, though, they're talking about all these things. And these are just, like I said, a lot of these things are going on. And the UK's Competition Markets Authority, or the CMA, has confirmed it is investigating Apple and Google over their dominant positions in the mobile phone market. And they're saying right now the companies that are running this whole thing is these two particular companies, and they're saying that they're going to be taking a closer look at the effective duopoly of the two firms, and right now how much the control that they have. And with that regards, though, they're saying that includes the operating systems Android and iOS, both app stores and Safari and Chrome web browsers. So officials are examining whether the pair are stifling competition across a digital range of digital markets. And CMA is concerned this could lead to reduced innovation across the sector and consumers paying higher prices for devices and apps or for other goods and services due to higher advertising prices. So they're saying, okay, what's going to happen is because of these particular companies, well, there's going to be an issue with that regards, of how these big companies are going to take a handle on this. So they're saying it's because of these big companies. Well, the little ones don't have the opportunity to grow, and that is unfortunate, and this is something that they want to prevent. And this is the rising fear of the CMA right now. So Google said its Android ecosystem generates at least £2.8 billion in revenue for the UK developers and supports 240,000 jobs. It has also said it had made major changes to its terms based on discussions with regulators such as the EU. And Apple has also been contacted for comment, and the announcement also specifically highlighted the question of whether either two of these tech giants, has market power over other businesses, including app developers, which rely on their app stores. So they say, okay, there's a lot of these companies, and how these app developers and who develop all these applications and such, well, they are facing issues because what's happening is they have to market their apps onto these platforms, and they say this is stifling the business, and that has been a hot button issue for the mobile industry over the past year, particularly after, and guys, you guys are wondering, there was that situation with Epic Game about how they launched its high-profile legal action against both Apple and Google, alleging unfair business practices. And they went on to say, that looking at all these things, the CMA chief executive Andrea Coselli said Apple and Google control the major gateways through which people download apps or browse the web on their mobiles, whether they want to shop, play games, stream music, or watch TV. This, we're looking into whether this could be creating problems for consumers and the businesses that want to reach people through their mobile phones. And a Google spokesperson said the company welcomed the CMA's efforts to understand before implementing new rules. And they say, okay, right now, this is how we're going to be dealing with this, how we're going to look into this particular matter at hand. And they're saying also other Android provides people with more choice than any other mobile platform in deciding which apps they use, and enables thousands of developers and manufacturers to build successful businesses. So right now, Apple is already being under investigation by the CMA over its App Store and whether its demands on app developers are anti-competitive. So Google likewise is also being investigated for its proposed new privacy system over concerns it could affect public news and publishers and the wider digital advertising market. So the CMA said that while both of these topics were within the scope of the new investigation, it was also much, much broader. So the watchdog said it is keen to hear directly from app developers about their experiences. And a questionnaire it posted included questions about which app stores developers work with and whether they are web-based alternatives that can offer the same experience. So this investigation will last no more than a year right now. They're saying, okay, this is what's going to happen. We're going to be looking into this because like I said, when it comes to these big tech markets, tech businesses, and these big tech companies, well, they are holding a sort of monopoly. Like looking at companies like Facebook, and then there's the Apple Store and the Google stores, and how Google and these big search engine, tech engine companies are dominating the industry, and it's monopolized is essentially what they're trying to say. And you can see how Facebook monopolizes as well all of the information. So information from Instagram and from Facebook and WhatsApp, now they're all three linked, and people were having rising concerns and privacy concerns with this regards, and they're saying they don't want to share any sort of information from their WhatsApp to the Facebook servers. So how come this is happening? And there was all of these dramas as well. So this is why the CMA is saying, there's a rising concern with this regards, and they want to find a way. And they're hopefully looking for a way they can to battle this and to combat this particular issue. Let's see how it goes, though. But hopefully they can find a way, to handle this particular situation and to navigate, circumvent rather, through this particular situation. And they can find a way, and see that maybe people and other companies can offer similar interests, similar benefits that these particular companies are giving their consumers, and that will open up a wider range for a lot of these companies. So let's see how it goes. Hopefully, this is something that they can they can implement and they can put forward, and this is just something to be looking forward to in the next couple of months. Hopefully, this won't. Like they said, the investigation won't last for at least more than a year. So let's see how it goes. Maybe this is something that will be beneficial for the future. And with that being said, we're going to be taking a real quick break, and we will be right back after this. Taking a look at your time, it is 4:30. Good evening.
Climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do. Hopefully,
climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest. Maybe the base camp at least.
You're talking about mental health. If you went out and got some exercise in the fresh air, that would improve your mental health. It will make you feel better.
That's true. That is true. I wholeheartedly agree. But then for some people, it's how do you find the motivation to, especially when it comes to riding a bicycle, to do it again and again and again and again? It's a cycle that you have to be used to. How do you do it? What makes you wake up in the morning and decide, hey, I'm going to pick my bike up today. I'm going to cycle. What makes you want to do that?
What makes me want to do that?
Yeah. What do you like? What could you give listeners, like people listening in right now? What kind of tip could you give them?
Well, the first tip I would give them, if you haven't tried it before, try it. It can open up new horizons. It will make you fitter. It will definitely make you fitter. Cycling is one of the best forms of aerobic exercise you can do.
It sounds like, if you think about it, it sounds like great fun. Because what essentially you're trying to say is also at the same time, when if you look at it from this perspective, with regards to mental health, especially when you look at it with mental health, this is another way to fight it. I feel like you go outside, you meet more people, you interact with, socially, you'll interact with more people, and you're keeping fit, you're making connections, you're breathing in the good and exhaling the bad. I feel like that's a great thing right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got a better way with words than I have, I'll tell you. But you're quite right. What you say there. You're quite right.
I've been doing this for quite some time. Hey, you'll get the hang of it.
I'll be doing it for about 10 minutes now. So, yeah.
That I can never really understand people staying in one room the whole day when you can have the world to see. I am a traveler. I travel. I love traveling. Traveling is just one of the things I do. And on top of my bucket list was, to one time, hopefully when I get there, go to Nepal and climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. Okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
Base camp, yeah.
At least.
We should be able to cycle there.
Oh. climb Mount Everest. That is that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
They're talking about mental health. Well, if you went out and got some exercise in the fresh air, that will improve your mental health. It will make you feel better.
That's true. That is true. I wholeheartedly agree. But then for some people, it's how do you find the motivation to, especially when it comes to riding a bicycle, to do it again and again and again and again? It's a cycle that you have to be used to. How do you do it? What makes you wake up in the morning and decide, hey, I'm going to pick my bike up today. I'm going to cycle. What makes you want to do that?
What makes me want to do that?
Yeah. What do you like? What could you give listeners, like people listening in right now? What kind of tip could you give them?
Well, the first tip I would give them, if you haven't tried it before, try it. It can open up new horizons. It will make you fitter. It will definitely make you fitter. Cycling is one of the best forms of aerobic exercise you can do.
It sounds like, I mean, if you think about it, yeah, it sounds like great fun. Because what essentially you're trying to say is also at the same time, when you, if you look at it from this perspective, with regards to mental health, especially when you look at it with mental health, this is another way to fight it. I feel like you go outside, you meet more people, you interact with, socially, you will interact with more people, and you're keeping fit, you're making connections, you're breathing in the good and exhaling the bad. I feel like that's a great thing right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got a better way with words than I have, I'll tell you. But you're quite right. What you say there. You're quite right.
I mean, I've been doing this for quite some time. I mean, hey, you'll get the hang of it.
I've been doing it for about 10 minutes now, so yeah.
That I can never really understand people staying in one room the whole day when you can have the world to see. I am a traveler. I travel. I love traveling. Traveling is just one of the things I do. And yeah, on top of my bucket list was, to one time, hopefully when I get there, go to Nepal and climb Mount Everest. That is that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
Base camp, yeah.
At least.
We should be able to cycle there.
Oh.
Welcome back to the show. This is Relaks Radio, RELAKS, with none other than me, Nick, keeping you guys company and, talking about all the things that is going on right now in the UK. And there's a lot of these discussions, a lot of these talks that is going on. And like I said, there has been a lot of these building relationships. We know the UK is building with a lot of these countries. And, with that regards, there has been talks also with the whole G7 issue. And with the G7 summit, what they were talking about and how they made a bunch of pledges. So we want to know right now is how are these pledges very significant? Well, hit me up and let me know. I can tell you all of these things and a whole lot more. It is 07852 473 473. That's right. Those are the magical numbers. Yeah, you can always hit me up and call me and I'll tell you all about it. And also don't forget you can download the app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store to carry us all day, every day. And getting back to the matter at hand, like I said, all of this, how is these G7 summit significant to all of us? And how are these pledges actually significant to the world? Well, for that matter, though, you're not looking at all these things. The world's richest nations, so they are, the world's rich nations which caused the climate crisis know what's expected of them, but they consistently fail to deliver in full. And that is a very unfortunate situation. So these summits made some sort of progress, especially on the heralding of the demise of the coal, which is the fuel that a lot of these industrial companies have been using since time immemorial. So, it's because of these fuels, these coal-powered companies, the emissions have been rising across the world. So, but for the, understand that we've been saying this, these rich fan clubs, these clubs have failed to deliver on promises that they've made to channel $100 billion a year to these poor nations and, to help them cope with these heating climates and the rising in the climate change. So, yes, there's been bilateral deals that have been offered and topped up funding to these developing nations. But although we've seen the details yet, it's clear that they won't tot up to the magical 100K mark. So campaigners are warning that there are no overarching deals to protect the climate unless that sum is reached and guaranteed at the vital COP26 climate conference in Glasgow, which is scheduled at around December this year. So that's right. It's been delayed. It was originally supposed to be in November, but now they pushed it to December, for good measures because of the rising cases of the Delta variant in the country. So that aside, though, Theresa Anderson from the Action Aid said the G7's reaffirmation of the previous $100 billion a year target does not come too close. It's not even coming close to addressing the urgency and the scale of the crisis. So the crisis right now is not a small thing. It's a pretty big deal. It's causing a lot of buzz and causing a lot of issues. And she went on to say, Theresa Anderson said, rich countries have so far failed to deliver on the climate finance pledges, and the majority of what has been provided to so far has been in the forms of loans, which are pushing vulnerable countries further into debt and poverty. So right now, like I said, they've made their promises. They said these are the things that we are going to be doing, but they've not kept up with it. And that is of a rising concern. So the financial issue, a running sore in the climate negotiations, has been compounded by demands from poor nations for more COVID help. So this issue right now has overshadowed some of the more promising moves for the G7. So President Joe Biden talked about, how these issues have been rising, and they said, Joe Biden went on to say that he talked about the end of coal power for generation in America, with no details of a date, though. There's no particular date given or how he could get legislation through Congress. So Germany and Japan will also face difficulty on this issue too. So the president also trumpeted the end of coal finance for poor nations. This will heap pressure on China to follow suit. So what they're going to do is they're going to force the country of China to make sure that, okay, you guys are going to be struggling with this as well. And the initiative to specifically target coal was led originally by the UK, which deserves credit for spotting a deliverable policy in the morass of vague talk about climate action. So there's another detail on coal too. A handful of rich nations will offer up to $2 billion a year to help emerging economies turn away from coal and make sure that they get away from the whole cold situation. And it's another sign that the world is in this climate fight together, although the sum is pretty small at the moment. So there's also an important initiative on specific targeting of sectors of the economy, including agriculture, steel, cement, and transport. So campaigners warned, and they wanted G7 to follow the UK's lead and announce a global phase out of the sales of these fossil fuel powered vehicles. So the leaders agreed, but significantly they didn't give a date. So right now, a global power game was also suggested by Boris Johnson to combat China's geopolitical thought through its gargantuan belt and road program, bringing roads and ports to Africa. So yeah, this is also something that they want to do, and they want to prevent, from coming up. And the Prime Minister offered instead a G7 new Marshall Plan, offering railways and solar farms, although that initiative did appear to have been invented without any sort of details. So right now, yeah, what they want to do is, like I said, the G7 summit, they were talking about all these things with relation to how, China is, and they want to, break the hold that China has to a lot of these countries, through its belt, the BRI rather, with their road program rather. So yeah, this is what they want to prevent, and they want to make sure that Western policies and allies have powers as well, and they're not going to be losing it to China. So with this regards to Lars Tubiana, the former French climate negotiator, a key actor in the triumph of the Paris Climate Conference in 2015, said in the face of a perfect storm of planetary crisis, the world's richest democracies have responded with an action to make a plan. So, and the swelling challenges still further is the inconvenient fact that 20 years ago, the G7 wealthy countries could really determine the face of the climate. So now we've had to add India to the list, and Indonesia, Brazil, Turkey, Nigeria, and South Africa, and yes, China as well. So all of these awakening giants will become more ready to act if they can see their rich counterparts put their finances where their words are. So they were saying, okay, these are, G7 has to act and has to set an example. It has to be exemplary rather. And, they have to show and be an example for a lot of these rising economies as well, including and not excluding India, Indonesia, Brazil, Turkey, Nigeria, and South Africa. So yeah, and not to mention China as well. So with that, in that relation, in that regard, though, they have to make sure that they follow up with their plans and cut down on these powered these emissions in their countries, reduce the number of emissions in their countries, and bring that figure to a more acceptable level. And hopefully, we can transition into the fact that we will stop using all this fuel and petrol and diesel and all these fossil fuels as well. So, that will eventually help the country and help the world rather, to move forward from this point. And with that regards, like I said, there's a lot of these discussions. So this is what G7 was talking about. And if they can if they do this, well, all the other countries will definitely follow suit. And yeah, that is what is expected. That is what we are hoping for, from all of this. We hope that this will cause the other countries as well to rethink their efforts into investing into countries that are poorer, the poor nations that invest into these coal-powered stations and all of that. So hopefully this will give a rise to more eco-friendly solutions. Let's see how it goes. Hopefully this is something that they can come forward with and they can step forward with. And the future is holding a very promising future. Let's see how it goes. And with that being said, we are going to be taking a real quick break. And taking a look at your time right now. It is 4:52. Good evening.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh. So that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, got me thinking. You want to stand out. Why do you want to stand out though so much, especially with these kind of shirts when you're riding? There must be a purpose behind it, right?
Well, when you say a purpose, Nick, what I do, I wear the shirts, mainly one because they're nice and bright, so they make me visible, especially if I'm riding on the road.
Okay. I mean, that's very important, right? Because you want cars,
very important. And also, like, people see me in like calves, and perhaps I shouldn't be saying this on air, I suppose, but in the bar afterwards.
All right.
And It gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh. So that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Girls, ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, you look like a guy who would do.
You know me too well. You know me too well, Nick.